never made a mortgage payment with your own money.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay, acquire the real estate.
Right. That's house hacking.
House hacking. How do you get to be 22 years old and have never had a credit card?
Yeah,
before?
exactly.
Like, what's the deal here?
That turned into Airbnbs.
I've done it. You've done it. Max has done it. So many others have done it.
That's bad debt.
I've never seen it be good debt. Okay? I remember what our apartment looked like.
That is true.
Let's not shake a stick at it. We're engineers. What's the ROI on
That's
that?
a lot. Building IKEA furniture, I'll test your marriage, let me tell you.
When everyone around you is suffering, you're a little bit more okay suffering.
No one wants to hear it. No one cares.
I'm on the road again, and this time the Roll with Steve podcast is shooting in beautiful downtown San Diego with today's guest, Steven Hainzer. 4 years ago, Steven Hainzer set a goal to generate $100,000 a year in passive income. And he achieved it through house hacking, investing, and buying businesses. But life knows how to throw in some major left hooks. Now on the passive income side, he's done it. $100K a year, and he broke down for me exactly the methods that he uses to make that happen. Although he does have some thoughts on just how passive anything actually ever is. And then life threw in a major left hook. What would you do if you purchased an Amazon brand for 6 figures, and then a year later, Amazon just shut off your account without warning? That's exactly what happened to Steven Hainzer. And on this episode, he breaks down exactly what went wrong for him to get a Section 3 deactivation, how he fixed it in less than a month, and most importantly, how he made sure to never be in this situation again. These shutdowns are such a common story for Amazon sellers. So if you want to hear a success story on how someone else beat Section 3, this is the episode for you. But we hit on so much more than just Amazon. See, Steven hit his 100K passive income goal not because he got lucky, but because he made the right moves early. And he took calculated risks to build multiple income streams. Want to know how? Let's go see. All right, you ready to do this thing?
Let's do it.
Okay, help me think back to, I think it was 2020. We met up in Oceanside.
Yeah,
I was in San Diego and you were in Orange County.
that would make sense. Yeah.
We met in the middle,
Uh-huh.
and I want to say it was either Oceanside or what's that city? It's San Clemente. That's what
it
was the burger
that's
place.
Right.
The very
that's
first
right,
place.
That's right.
You were trying to talk
They're
the
good
kid
burgers.
behind the counter into quitting his job and starting a business.
That's right,
Like, what are you
that's
doing
right.
with your life, man?
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Yeah.
a very Eric Hainzer of you, of sorts. But I remember sitting down there, and you mentioned to me that your goal over the next 5 to 10 years was to get to 6 figures of passive income while keeping your day job,
Right.
staying in sales, maintaining being a high performer there, and getting to 6 figures of passive income.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the results, but walk me back in your mindset to what you wanted back then. This is almost 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
What were you thinking that motivated you to want 6 figures of passive income while keeping a day job?
Yeah. Well, first off, the answer is financial freedom. Have the day job. You have enough. Funny thing about passive income, and you know this better than most, is it's not very passive.
Yeah.
It takes a lot
Not
of
normally.
work, a lot of work to get to passive income. As far as the journey, it was going to be like Airbnbs, real estate, things like that, which I started, and me and my wife started together. It transitioned from that to, as you know, like Amazon businesses and things like that. Still have the Airbnbs and still growing that. But as far as how much capital you need in order to do something, how you can turn that capital into reoccurring revenue, I saw a path of least resistance on the business side. So maintaining the Airbnbs and their assets, there's a lot of benefits to it, but and that growing the business side of things, because one, the gain is much greater and the capital investment up front is a lot less than real estate. So, but the goal being financial freedom, it's not about, it was never about like buying the nicest things or doing the coolest things. It was just being able to do what I want to do on a day-to-day basis.
But where did the desire come from, though? Like, okay, you wanted to have financial freedom, but what was motivating you to think about that? Like, what was going on that made you say, okay, I do want to have the day job. I like that.
Yeah.
But I want to have this passive income too.
Yeah.
Is there a deeper meaning behind all of it?
It was, I just see, people talk about all the time, like CEOs are never making, they've never made more than they make today. And I'm like, well, okay, we choose to be employees, but I want to be the CEO. And if I'm just an okay CEO, then I take the risk and I get the reward. And it was really, I don't want to rely on someone else especially now that I'm married, for my income and things like that. Like, I don't want to have to be, I don't want to have to adhere to a company's policies and rules to live my life, and it really stems from that. And truly, man, just being able to spend time, what's really important to me is being able to have the time to do what I want, whether that's spending time with family, spending time golfing, traveling with my wife, kids on the way, spending time with kids. It truly is that. And I think the difference between, it's doing what you want to do rather than doing what you have to do.
Interesting. And you mentioned that you wanted to keep the day job.
Yes.
I think you said, if I can quote you, and it's from 5 years ago, I don't ever see myself not having the sales job. Like, I like the job I have. Why would I not do that?
Right.
Where does that come from?
Yeah.
Because how do you have on one hand this desire to do things entrepreneurially and have the passive income that would in theory free you up from having the day job, but knowing that, at least at the time, I always want to have this day job.
It's like a hobby. It's, day job's now optional. Have enough passive income, day job's optional. I enjoy it. I'm good at it. I've built relationships. I've processes and now friendships out of it. And I think it becomes, it's cool when it becomes optional, but still you have the freedom to do what you want. And actually, funny story, Wednesday morning, and this kind of, I was thinking about this, driving over here, I woke up at 5 a.m. to go play golf. And I woke up naturally early. I was so excited. My 4:55 alarm didn't go off. I just woke up, grabbed a cup of coffee. I'm like, I can't wait to get to Torrey Pines to play. And I'm walking, and to my left, I see a guy in a Navy PT uniform on Coronado. And it looks like he woke up 90 seconds ago. And he is, you know what I mean? Like, remember those days? We were just, you're freezing, you're cold, you're miserable because you have to go to PT and you have to like do this stuff and you're hating life. And I'm over here drinking coffee. I couldn't be more excited to be awake. And it just kind of reiterated, I was like, man, this is not a bad spot to be in. I'm not overly successful. I'm not making millions a year, but man, I'm able to do what I want to do. Yeah. And I'm no longer, because we've been there, I'm no longer in that position where I have to wake up at 5. I'm like, man, I can't wait. To do what I want. And golf is, a hobby and not, but it just goes for, if work's your hobby, you could be waking up to do that or staying up late to do that.
Let me ask you, how many people do you think get the same feeling you get waking up at 5 a.m. to go play golf as they're going to their day job?
Oh, dude.
Like, does that exist? Do you think that there's anyone out there who actually feels excited to go to work at a company that they don't own?
No. I mean, and you look at it in just society today, man. Corporate America has never been more transactional than it has today. We talk about like corporate, we're a family. I was like, dude, Amazon will push it. Their goal is to fire you in like 2.5 years. Don't give me your DEI.
And they're blatant
family.
about it too.
Yeah, they're blatant about it. We're family and its cultures are, culture's king. It's like, no. It's purely, whereas like 20 years ago, our parents worked for a company for 20 years,
and they got a pension for it.
And they got a pension.
Great retirement plan that you don't get today.
Oh, your wife is sick? We're going to throw some extra dollars in the paycheck for you. Your boss says. Like, doesn't happen today.
Like, my God.
Yeah. Oh, your wife's sick? You have enough PTO to cover that? Because, we got, I don't know about, we have shareholders, So I don't think anyone's waking up like, man, I gotta.
What about the people who are making millions in their day job? So that's such a small subset of people. So we're talking not even doctors, unless you're like a small subset of doctors that has an extreme specialty. Maybe you're the best cardiologist in the country, you make over $1 million a year. But most of these guys that are not specialized are making like 250. And then if they're specialized, you're making around like $500,000. But if you are making more than $1 million, how many years in school did you spend to make that happen? But the investment bankers, the Wall Street guys, the people who don't own the firm, but they get to work at the firm and make millions of dollars doing it if they're successful. Do you think that they're excited to get up at 5 a.m. to go to work?
You know, I don't do to that. You know, I think a little bit more. They own a larger portion of the business. Like, okay, our goal for the company is 100 mil a year. I'm bringing in 25. You know, I have ownership in this company in a way. You know, and their compensation is directly tied to that. That's like top 0.1% of employees, though. It's hard to say you're even an employee. Most employees, man, 99%. There is no. You're not even compensated on your production. You know, that's engineering. We both engineering degrees. The reason why I got out of engineering is like, why am I getting paid the same amount as this guy, but managing 4 times as many projects as this guy? This doesn't make sense. And I was like, you know, there's got to be something better. That's how I got into sales originally.
But you've been in, I'd say, corporate America for a decade now.
Yeah, man.
Obviously, military too. You deployed, fresh out of the National Guard now at this point. And off the inactive alert. Okay, so whatever happens in the world you're good.
Yeah.
But being in corporate America for a decade, I'm just curious, what would your company have to do to make you excited to go to work at 5 a.m.?
You know, what would my company have to do to? There's nothing. I mean,
what is it that's missing?
The pain.
Like if you do it for golf. And I would imagine you do it for your own business, and we'll get into that too. And you're excited to get up and start making things happen for your own bottom line. Like, what could your company do in your day job that makes you want to work just as hard for them? Or is that actually impossible?
I think it comes down to ownership. I think it comes down to actually ownership in what you're either selling or producing, the company itself. I think if you had some ownership, whether it's in the form of stock, but even like Amazon gives you stock, but it's like so arbitrary because Amazon's so big. So even then, it's tough to say. It's tough to say. I think work worth doing is worth doing good, and I think it's if you can create an environment where the whole company's doing good work for, you know, in general, maybe for a better purpose, but just in general, I think that might, but even then there's the incentives. That's what we're motivated by. There's an incentive structure there. So
I read this this quote. It actually might have been on a documentary that you and I watched together when we were in college and roommates.
Oh, that's good.
Maybe you'll remember this. The documentary was about people who were getting out of prison and people who were coming out of like addiction centers who were being given jobs instead of being given handouts. And the whole premise of it was that a huge percentage of people derive a huge part of their self-worth from what they do for a living. And so I just feel like on one side you have like how I feel about me is coming from like what I'm doing, but I'm not passionate enough about what I'm doing to want to get up early and motivated to go and make it happen because I don't have ownership in it. Like, how do we square that?
Dude, you got to do something for yourself. I think it's basically you're getting paid for homework in the corporate world. You have homework to do. You have a test to take. You're constantly having homework. You're constantly having tests. You could do 50% effort and get a 90. But what's the reward in giving 80 or 90% effort to get that 100? There is no incentive to do that. You have to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to do something, I think for yourself. I mean, yeah, just based on seeing your trajectory, it's evident that, yeah.
I mean, I've seen lives changed the moment someone starts a business.
Yeah.
It's funny how much can get done in 12, 24 months when you're working for your own bottom line. And you started to make that transition. But before we talk about the businesses, you also got involved in what I would call more passive approaches to income first. Still got your day job, still killing it in sales, but you come up with this idea first, I think, was the Airbnbs, right? Or were you investing first and then to the Airbnb?
It was investing and then getting some actual hard assets where it was important to me, and that turned into Airbnb. So it started the long-term rental. So I first had that long-term rental in Riverside where I was renting out each door of the 4
You were
bedroom.
house hacking.
I was house hacking.
House hacking.
That's the modern day term.
So remind me, you had the master bedroom in that
I had
house?
the master bedroom.
Okay, so you had the master bedroom. How many bedrooms were in the
22
house?
years old. There's 4 bedrooms, so I was renting out each individual door in the house.
Love that. Love that. I did a very similar thing in Kentucky at my first home too. That there's 2 things that I think separated the path that you and I take from most people when you think about home ownership and getting started in life. Number 1, we didn't have any student loans.
It's huge.
And number 2, we were blessed to have one of our best friends who bought a home at 21 or 22 and told us about this house hacking.
Right.
And then we both decided to do it too.
Right.
Is that where all the initial capital that you ended up putting into your businesses came from?
No, not even. You know, I mean, it helped, but no, man, it was just saving, selling the investment. I think, you know, I didn't really stretch to start the businesses as you know, you're aware. It was just going based on instinct and no, it wasn't capital, really wasn't capital intensive.
Yeah.
You know,
but it is like, I mean, when you bought the house, you had to make a down payment.
You know what's crazy? Because I was an owner, so I could put 3% down. I put 3% down on homes back then. Were $280,000.
Was that an FHA loan? It was
just conventional loan.
Conventional loan. Not even the VA. It's zero down.
Dude, when I graduated college, I didn't have a credit score.
Yeah.
So I go to get it. I'm like, hey, my buddy, you know, our friend's dumb enough to do this. I can do it. Yeah. Hey, you know, call up a lender. Hey, I want to buy this home. And they go, okay, you don't have a credit score. I was like, what do you mean I don't have a credit score?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, have you ever had any credit? You don't have a student loan. You don't have credit cards. You don't have a car loan. I was like, okay. He's like, get a credit card, start buying things on it.
I'm sure that guy was like, how do you get to be 22 years old and have never had a credit card?
Yeah,
before?
exactly.
Like, what's the deal here? Like, you're using a debit card for everything? Like, what's wrong with you?
Dude, I mean, we came from our parents' generation.
Mr. Responsible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. You just pay things with the cash that you have?
Like what's going on there? You know?
So, yeah. So
okay, so what did you pay for that house?
I put $9,000 down.
Okay, $9,000.
Yeah.
And you bought the house for how much?
It was $280,000.
Okay, $280,000.
Yeah.
You put down $9,000. Let's not just pass over the fact you put down $9,000 because
I didn't have a lot of money then.
Right? And $9,000 is nothing to shake a stick at.
No.
In fact, when I talk to people, it's very interesting to me how common it is for them to say, you know what's holding me back from getting started on taking the leap is I got to save up $10,000 first so that I can go and fill in the blank. Okay, 9,000. They're talking about 10,000. 1,000 difference, 10%. Where did the $9,000 come from? You saw it earlier that you saved.
Right.
How?
It was first job, living below my means. Well below my means. I was making $70,000 a year. Yeah. First job out of college. Making $70,000 a year.
Which is a key for engineers coming out that you can go and get a job like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But you didn't spend it all.
I didn't.
That's my point.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But is that something that you just knew not to do? Was it because you didn't have the credit cards? Like I had credit card debt in college. That separates me from you. I remember how debilitating it was to have $4,000 to pay off in the summertime of just things I spent like playing poker online and just doing stupid stuff. But you didn't have that, but you knew to save and to set something aside.
Well, yes, you know, because I always wanted my time and I knew if I wanted to retire early, it started now. It really did.
So you already had that desire.
Yeah, I'm 33 now. I would tell people I want to retire by 35.
Yeah.
And you know, the case isn't closed on whether that's going to happen.
Hey, you got plenty of time. 36 months.
I got plenty of time. But yeah, and that starts by the small wins, you know. And that was the, you know, an idea I've been thinking a lot about was compounding interest in not just financially, but in life. With every little win, with every little effort put in, it's hard to realize that gain in real time. But 5-10 years down the road, each little, on the Amazon side, each SKU that's developed over, 1 or 2 weeks, or each little win, every effort put into it, even if it's a learning point where you don't make a lot of progress.
Yeah.
I truly believe in compound interest in effort as well.
Well, I would even argue that the efforts you put into this initial house, not just like the money that comes from it, but the knowledge and the confidence that you took a risk, and how did that work out? Because if you go back to that, you put in $9K, you buy this home for $280, you're renting out the rooms individually, and are you making more money from those rents than you're paying for the mortgage?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you're cash flow positive in this. What were you bringing in rent on average for each room?
My mortgage was $1,500 and some change. I had a maid, so that was a selling point. I have a maid that comes in once a month. I mean, can you imagine this place, 4 dudes? Yeah. I mean, it is.
Well, having lived with you, I remember what our apartment looked like. So.
Yeah. Cleaning was moving things to the side. See, it's clean, and
throw it all into a closet.
Exactly. Yeah, just one pile instead of many piles. That was a selling point, but it was about $700 a door, and that went up with each renter, but it started out at $700 doors. So it was bringing in $2,100. I paid for utilities.
Yeah. What was the mortgage?
Like $1,500, all in crazy. Like $1,800-$1,900. So you cash flowed, but that went back into the home eventually.
Sure, but how many people still aren't doing this? Because on top of that, you don't have rent to pay now because you're living for free.
Right.
And you have the master bedroom.
Right.
You're living with your friends, people that you like, that you're partying with on the weekends, and they're paying your mortgage for you.
Yeah.
And then a few years goes by, and you sell that house for how much?
$500. Even
500.
290 something.
What year was that?
Or not 490 and some change. That was 2021.
Okay. Was that the height of when things were going crazy?
I missed it by probably. The house probably went up to 550.
Okay.
Which is good, man. I sold to someone, a small family. They got some equity. It's lost some equity since then, but I in a way, it's great. It didn't hit like the absolute peak, and someone's kind of screwed on a high interest rate, high mortgage.
But you might have $50K more in your pocket to make it happen.
True, let's
not shake a stick at it. But you come into this investment for $9,000. You never make a mortgage payment, and you exit for
about $250.
$250.
Yeah.
What's the ROI? We're engineers. What's the ROI on that?
It's a lot.
I mean, that's more than 1,000%.
Yeah, over 5 years, 6 years.
That's like a 2,500% return on the $9K that you put in the first place, and never made a mortgage payment with your own money. Why don't more people do this? Because there's enough examples out there now. Like when we were coming up, we heard about Max doing this, and he's like, I'm living for free. They're paying my mortgage for me. He's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Never heard of someone doing that before. Now, like I've done it, you've done it, Max has done it, so many others have done it, and you still don't see people taking that step now coming out of college. Is it because houses are just way more expensive than they used to be, or that they don't have the $9K to put down, or those programs aren't available? Like, what do you attribute the fact that most people still aren't doing these things?
Dude, I think it's easy to see the result, once it's done. But when I first did it, I remember the feeling. Like, I'm putting $9,000 down and furnishing it. So that's another $9,000. I didn't have a lot of money in the savings. It's like, you guys are paying me rent, right? Like, that was the risk. There was real risk. Yeah. I was like, if these guys don't pay me rent, things get bad in a hurry. Luckily they did pay me rent. But I think it's that initial risk. Good. It's that seeing that is like I think a lot of people start the process. How much is this home? Everyone looks on Zillow, There's the Instagram reels of people looking on Zillow and dreaming of a home. But, developing a budget, developing a plan, hitting that first roadblock, but really like perpetuating relying on your instincts and your gut, I think is really important, because you get to the point where everything makes financial sense, but you don't actually take that risky first step. That's
such a good point, that most people don't have the risk tolerance for a what if scenario. Like, what if I can't get all the rooms rented out? What if 2 people leave and it's just me and that person? Or what if nobody comes and lives here, and everyone leaves at the same time, and I'm stuck here paying this mortgage? That risk tolerance, I mean, that's a big deal. And you articulated so well. You remember what it felt like. Like you knew you were taking a risk and buying something that technically, frankly, you couldn't afford because you couldn't pay cash for it.
Right.
So you are borrowing from your future and the future profits for most people of their income.
Right.
In this case, future profits of what you're bringing into the house and praying that things go right in order to make that happen. Talk to me about where that risk tolerance comes from, because most people don't have a high risk tolerance at all.
I see it to be more risky to do nothing. You know, that's so personally. I see, well, if I want to get to here, I'm not going to do it making 70 grand a year for the next 30 years. I don't want to do that. I have to take some sort of risk. And as far as calculated risk go, I actually contribute a lot of it to when we were playing poker, when we didn't have a lot of money in our pocket, and we were playing poker at Morongo. I truly do. I think giving yourself those low risk kind of introductory associations with risk. So like if we were to lose all our money at a poker table, it's like a couple $100. It's really low, but it feels like, oh my God, you just got.
If you only have a couple $100, like
that's
you
true.
may not
That
eat
is
for
true.
the next
That
week.
is true.
You know,
that is true. But you leave with your tail between your legs and your, but playing and we didn't gamble. We played strictly poker. Yeah. And we would, you knew the risk on every hand. So, okay, I know going into this hand when we were playing very often, I have an 80% chance of winning this hand. You don't always win it though. Yeah. So knowing that if I just do this thing that I know has a high success rate, if I continuously do this and trust my gut, I will eventually be successful. It's just the law of averages. Yeah. But a lot of the risk tolerance came from just putting myself in situations of like risky situations like that and being able to internalize those emotions. It's such an emotional game, whether it's stock or real estate or it's all, there's emotions associated with all of it.
It's true. I can see the pattern in your life though. If the first time you ever took risk was when you bought that house, I don't think you ever would have bought the house. But because you got into this mindset of risk, reward, and you'd already played poker, you'd already put some money down on roulette. Granted, it wasn't much, but if you're putting down $300 of the $900 that you have down into play poker, like that hurts a whole lot more than this house investment not working out at the time, because it's like I could have gone and done a trip with that, but instead, like I don't have any money left, or I squandered it away, or worse, I go in for another $300 to go get the $300 back that I lost, and now I have $300 left to my name instead. Like that's risky. But then you'd also made investments in the stock market, and you're putting money down, praying that things go right. So when the time comes for you to put down $9 grand, which is most of the money you had at the time, to make a much larger investment, you were kind of already ready for that risk because you had worked your way up to that risk commensurately.
And I think if I could give any advice to someone who's thinking about doing it, it's it's you've heard it before. It's an age-old adage of be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I truly think putting yourself in, get that blackjack dealer's license. Do something different. But go into it knowing I'm going to be able to figure this out. And that was my mindset. Was I'm going to take this risk, but the risk in my mind is low because I will figure out how to pay for this venture.
Yeah, I mean, little known fact about you and me is that we did Army ROTC together. So we did have
all the
a
dirty secrets.
Stipend that was coming in. So we had some money that we could gamble it all. And there were times I gambled it down to the last penny, but I knew I get paid on Friday. Like this is not that big of a deal. I got a little card to swipe myself into the cafeteria. I'm not going to go hungry or anything.
Dude, that was,
But you say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Does that come from the Army? Is that where that concept started for you?
Maybe. I'm sure it played a part for sure. I think I am a big believer in surrounding yourself with hardworking, smart, unique people that do different things, and I think really who you surround yourself with at an early age is extremely important in my personal development. I don't know about you, but for sure, it's a huge part in, because I see you do it. I see so many people do it, whether it's on the fitness front or on the, business front or corporate front. I see so many people do it, and it gives me, when you see your peers doing something like that, if you're not surrounding yourself with people who are more successful, doing more interesting things than you are, then you don't really have anything to chase after. So,
or even putting themselves into uncomfortable situations. That's why I bring up the Army, because when everyone around you is suffering, you're a little bit more okay suffering. Like, we got so used to that in the military, where you show up to PT formation, and this is trivial, but one person didn't bring their PT jacket, and that was what the uniform was. And it's 35 degrees outside in California.
Yeah.
Who knew that it got that cold?
Yeah.
Welcome to the butthole
Yeah.
of California,
Yeah,
Riverside.
yeah.
We found it there. Well, if one person didn't bring their jacket, everybody has to take their jacket off so that we're all in the exact same uniform. Well, everybody's suffering together, but we're all pointing the finger at one dude that didn't bring his jacket.
Yeah.
But the bigger point to this for me is, if I'm walking to the airport and I've got my wife and my 2 daughters with me, 5 and 2 right now, and I might be carrying 4 or 5 bags laden down, because I'm not going to ask my 2-year-old to carry a bag, but I will ask my 4-year-old, my 5-year-old to drag her little bag behind her. Tell me why that 5-year-old is like, this is too hard, my legs are tired. And you want to snap back and be like, hey, we're all suffering. Okay. You don't hear me talking about it. Okay. Yeah. Like, I'm laden down with the whole family's bags. And I don't notice it just with the kids. I also notice it in adults too. If you haven't been through the experiences that we did in Army training, where you're uncomfortable for a 12-mile ruck march with 50 pounds on your back, you're wearing a Kevlar, you're carrying a rifle, and boots that are ill fit for the job. And then you go through this rocky uphill, downhill terrain for 12 miles. You got blisters on the bottom of your feet.
Yeah.
And 6 miles in, it sucks.
Yeah.
But you can't come to me 6 miles in next to me and be like, dude, this is awful. It's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
We're all sucking it up. We just end up doing it. A lot of people want to be like my 5-year-old. They want to talk about how uncomfortable it is as a means of starting to say, this is why I'm going to quit. This is why I'm not going to do it anymore, because I'm uncomfortable. But when you're surrounded by other people who are also uncomfortable, you're like, okay, I'm good being comfortable. Like, I got 6 more miles to go. Yeah. So does he. So does she. We're just making it happen. We don't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah.
Talk about being around other people who are also uncomfortable, and that becoming your network of people who are pushing themselves beyond the ordinary means of what most people want to do or what most people are willing to do. Talk to me about how, in that context, it sets you up for success to be around people that you see like you're making yourself uncomfortable because you know where you're going.
Right. I mean, to boil it down, it's agency. It's like you see people who have agency over their life. Someone who wants to quit or is blaming something, it could be political, it could be their environment, it could be how they're feeling. To your point, like in the Army, no one cares if you're hungry or tired in the middle. It doesn't matter if you haven't slept in 5 days. No one cares how
suffer
no one
in
wants
silence
to hear
you.
it. No one wants to hear it. No one cares. But it did create, it gave me agency over an autonomy of how I operate. I knew I could get through anything, and seeing people go through that they have agency over their life and agency over their outcomes. You really do. It's not up to who's the president, or the only person who's going to create real change in your life is you. And at least I believe that, regardless of who's in office, regardless of your circumstance, regardless of of your starting point, there is no benefit in believing in victimhood. There is zero benefit. Zero.
Yeah.
Create agency in yourself and go out there, fail, get used to, one key aspect is being strict on vision but flexible on details. Like my vision was passive income. and we talked about how passive income, not very passive, a lot of work to get the passive income.
Yeah.
And that was originally real estate. And then things pivoted. But my vision has always remained steadfast in seeing how can I put myself and my wife in a position where we can leverage our strengths to get to this end goal.
Yeah.
But that just comes back to each individual has agency in their outcomes.
No, that's
how
true.
you
And it's a
do
good segue to get back into these side hustles that you started doing, because you did the house hacking that turned into multiple other houses.
Yeah.
That you ended up putting up on.
We did a flip.
We were involved in a flip. How soon we
You got
forget?
a lot going on,
you
man.
know?
You remember that?
Yes, that was the 2020 time frame.
Unrepeatable.
Yeah.
It was just good timing, good market, good everything. That was crazy.
But think about the risks that people were saying was in that deal before it took place. I remember I was in a golf cart with Liz, and she was talking about I would never take that kind of risk. You know, and I remember hearing Mark and Ellie, Max's parents, saying "Do you imagine like what the market could do, and you'd be stuck in this thing?" And okay, but you go out from house hacking, you get into Airbnb, which there's a lot of people that say they want to do Airbnb, that are looking for the easy way to make it happen. But for most people, you have to have some capital to put in to buy the real estate and then be able to operate it. There were some models that pre-pandemic people were doing where they were not borrowing money, but they were renting homes and then subleasing them out for Airbnb.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens so much anymore, but you purchased your homes on Airbnb.
Yeah.
And went and figured out something that most people say they want to do, but they never actually take the first step to make it happen, which is, acquire the real estate.
Right.
Why do you think people say they want to do a house on Airbnb? They see the passive income that they think it can come from it, but they don't take the first step to make it happen.
Man, Airbnb is a lot of work, especially a lot of upfront work.
But did you know that before you started?
I knew that.
You did know that?
I did know that.
Okay.
I knew because things that have to happen.
Yeah.
You purchase the home, you close the home, you need to list it on Airbnb. So you have to furnish the home. Who's going to furnish the home?
Yeah.
You have a 2,000 square foot home. Who's furnishing it? You are. You're going to hire someone to furnish it? I mean, you can if you're trying to scale this quickly, but my goal was a home a year. So, who's furnishing it? Me and my wife, So we're still working our W-2. We're taking Teams calls and Zoom calls from Amazon boxes in front of a window, trying to give it our best look, make sure that, hey, Steven's working.
That's right.
But I mean, literally built everything in the home, did it in a week.
Yeah.
Furnished, built an entire home in a week, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'll test your marriage, let me tell you.
Oh,
know? Building IKEA furniture is every marriage you go through.
Test your own mental sanity to go along with that too.
But I think it's that risk and that hard work up front. It's a great idea, man. Oh, I have 20 Airbnbs and once again, people with this TikTok culture and Instagram culture, everyone sees the result and not always the actual pain and effort and risk that goes into it.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Now, when you bought your first house, you had this feeling where you knew you were taking a risk. Now you've exited that hundreds of thousands of dollars later that you have to reinvest other places. Did you feel the same way about buying the first couple of Airbnbs where it's like, I'm taking a big risk here? I hope this works out okay.
After you do it the first time, it's the same thing in a different, in a different format. So I knew I was going to have to learn the platform Airbnb, furnish it, but I was going to rent out that place. It was just, there wasn't the risk and struggle associated with getting the Airbnb was a lot less and a lot of less mental gymnastics. I knew the financials, did a lot of research. I think that's key. So getting into this, you first want to make sure that the market you're going into isn't pushing to deregulate. So you have to first do your research both on the money side, but on the regulation side. And then you have to be able to find you don't want to stretch. You don't want to be like, I'm looking for a $300,000 home. I'll just do the 400 and we'll be able to list it and stick to your plan, your business plan. And I think if you stick to your business plan, check all the boxes, but also be persistent and relying on your instinct and gut, I think that's the key for success. But you have to put in that upfront work, which takes a lot of time and research, Excel sheets, and then execute on it.
But square this for me, because you took more risk buying the Airbnbs. Just dollar amount of the homes than from that first home.
Absolutely.
Taking bigger risks, but you've been there, done that, and it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm taking risk.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel anywhere near as big as the first one.
For sure.
I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because you have now you have your first win. You got some money in the bank. You got you got a long leash, so to speak, for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can make mistakes here and there. Ideally, you don't. And these have been going great, but you have a little bit more backing, which that is the financial freedom. It's going back to the financial freedom portion, where the only way you can create that is by not putting yourself in debt in all these different cars, student loans, all these different aspects. It's bad debt. It's some people might say student loan. Oh, that's good debt. No. That's bad debt.
I've never seen it be good debt. Okay?
I've never seen. Yeah.
Not yet.
No. That's bad.
I'm still paying it off 25 years later, but that was some good debt
crazy?
to get.
That is crazy.
It's great marketing that they've sold us on. The student debt is good debt.
I mean, it's incredible.
Buying a house, good debt. Student loans, good debt. Buying the house, I agree with that. Depending on how you use it. Student loans, hell no. Oh wait, how about a 7-year car loan? It's good debt. Gotta have a car to get around. You know, the way this car is gonna make you feel when you're in it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's break that down and move on. The confidence that you had to make this second investment because you had been there, done that one time, had a win. It's a bigger bite to take off now, but I feel like you already knew the things you needed to do and had the confidence that, hey, I kind of know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be fine.
For sure.
I can take more risk now to make this happen. And that's worked out very well for you, because now you have these Airbnbs that are, have you ever paid a mortgage payment on an Airbnb that wasn't covered by the collective rent incomes?
No, it's seasonality, but you have enough in the bank and you're cash flowing enough where your LLCs, you have it broken down where it's very clear to, in a glance, visualize the health of your business. And that's how I have it set up.
So just to be clear, you have owned multiple homes in the last decade and you've never made a mortgage payment with your own money.
Never made a mortgage payment. No, a rent payment where I lived, but investments always were mortgages.
Which is crazy to think about. Yeah. Like, someone else has paid every mortgage payment for you.
Yeah.
And if 50% of that mortgage payment is going into your pocket, the rest of it going to interest.
That's right.
Like, every single month, there's people putting money into your pocket for you.
And if you're complaining about inflation, get a home. If you have $1 million worth of assets and inflation goes up 5%, $50,000 in your pocket.
Yeah.
Essentially, I mean, it's a hedge against inflation. Interest rates play a factor, but over the next 5 years, it's a hedge against.
Well, such a good point. The inflation really only hurts people that don't own anything.
Exactly right.
If you have any real assets, real estate, or you own a business, your business is probably a part of that inflation, where you might be winning more because of inflation. It gives you an excuse to raise your prices up even more than maybe you have to, because everything else is going up too. I find that very interesting, that in times that the average person is hurting, if you owned anything, you're killing it.
Yeah, you're happy.
You're doing
you're
so
smiling.
well.
It reminds me of this idea. Have you heard of the Matthew principle?
I have not.
And this is, so to your point of have and have nots. So the people who rent, who have nothing, inflation goes up, they have nothing to show for it. It states, to him who has everything, more is given. To him who has nothing, more is taken.
Yeah.
So the person, like, you feel like, oh, these people just got lucky. It's like, no, it's, you were, persistent in your pursuit, and you took these risks, and you have these, and because you took these risks, it's like the compounding, more is given.
Yeah.
And then these people who didn't take risks, we almost realized it in real time in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the people who didn't have anything, who have no assets and are renting, leasing a car, renting, nothing in high yield saving, no investments. Stock market's doing great, by the way. I know things are hard to buy. Stock market's doing great.
Mm-hmm.
They had nothing, and now they have less somehow.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? It is so risky not to take a risk. It is so incredibly risky.
It's far riskier than actually taking the risk in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, anyone who's ever bought the S&P 500,
Yeah.
unless it was in the last 2 weeks, is up on that investment.
Right.
All time.
Yeah.
Anyone who's ever bought it is
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I remember saying that to my little brother 5 years ago when my first daughter was born. I came out to come visit her, and he's just starting his job and a career. And he's saying, "What do you think about the S&P 500?" I said, "Well, just look at it, dude. Anyone who's ever bought it is up."
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's a pretty safe investment if you're going to do some back testing to make sure that it's going to do well for you. But the moment after I gave him that advice, we had that 2020 dip for coronavirus. And I was way overexposed to that in the market. It still was the right advice for anybody to have hopped in right then and there. If you benchmark where the S&P was at before coronavirus and where it's at now, you're probably up like 200% on that investment. It didn't feel good when you went down 40%, but if you hung it out, hey, in the long term, like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like Warren Buffett says all the time that there's unless you're the worst timed person in the world, let me get this right. Unless you have the worst timing in the world, there's never a bad time to buy the S&P 500. But it's still only true if you hop out when it goes down.
Right.
So anyone that has a long-term view of what they're doing and what they're getting involved in, whether it's the S&P 500, your Airbnbs, the house hacking, is going to probably do well over time, unless there's something catastrophic that happens. And then I'd say you probably have bigger problems if those things happen. If you're letting like, oh, what if World War III happens, keep you from starting a business? Like, I feel like you have bigger problems if World War III comes off. Like, it might be bombs dropping on your apartment building if World War III happens.
Exactly.
Maybe start the business anyway, and let's just see what happens. Okay. Passive income. Got these Airbnbs. Do you define your Amazon business as a piece of passive income, or is that more the active?
I mean, it's the idea is there's no passive. The only passive income you have is if you got lucky on a Dogecoin or something like that. That's the truly only passive. That's my belief.
Which I do agree with. I would argue that long-term real estate is passive income. If you have a property manager, you don't think about it. Investing in the stock market with a financial manager is passive income. But outside of that, I don't really know where it exists. Government bonds. Okay, let's close the loop on your desire to make 6 figures of passive income.
Yeah.
What did you know then? What do you know now? Almost half a decade later, as you're well on your journey, like, where are you at on that 6 figures of passive income annually?
Yeah, I mean, we are. So it's weird, right? If you want to pause, if you want to stop growth and just pool cash, we're almost there. We're pretty close. If we just want to pull cash from the business, we don't want to reinvest it, and that's where the trickiness lies in the passive income, because it's perspective and goal setting, and for a lot of us, goals are a changing, benchmark. Those things keep changing, and for us, it's like because $100,000 is no longer that interesting anymore. Yeah,
because I would argue because you've achieved it, or mostly achieved it, it's like you moved on to what's next.
Right.
What if you never had the goal of 6 figures of passive income? Do you think that you'd be where you are right now?
No, there's no way. Yeah, there's no way.
Is that just because you knew what you were working towards and you had a why behind it and it guided you? Like, why did you get here? Is it just because you made the goal and then tracked it, like turned it into your own like set of KPIs, or?
In a way, I think I don't think I would, definitely not. I wouldn't be, it just, to take your free time to do something that's some people don't really find enjoyable, it just takes effort, and unless you set goals for yourself, you're never going to put in the effort. You're arbitrarily spinning wheels, which sometimes yields success, man. Come back to that 80-20, it comes back to the poker hand where I think I'm going to win. The scrub daddy guy with a smiley face on a sponge, He didn't have to start 10 different businesses, a couple Airbnbs, a couple Amazon. He's like, went on Shark Tank and he's like, I have a pretty good idea. It scrubs pretty well. And I don't know how many businesses he started, but just to show you that
it could have just been one. One would have been enough for him.
It could have just been, yeah, one is, $100 million of Scrub Daddy sold or whatever.
Yeah. It helps he got on Shark Tank. What, did Mark Cuban invest in that deal?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's wild. A guy I've had on the podcast, his episode of Shark Tank airs tonight.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, watch out for him.
I'll tune in.
5 p.m. our time. Yeah, Kobe's.
Kobe's, he went on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Let's go Kobe's. Hope
I'm
we got a
assuming
deal.
he didn't do a deal because when we talked about it, he didn't indicate that he had been on
bring
Shark
up,
Tank.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
still
maybe I'll be
salty.
surprised to find that out, But I think it was for the exposure in his case. I don't think he ever went in there intending to do a deal.
Can't wait to buy some. I don't know
It's
what it
just
is.
like lip balm.
Oh, nice.
Lip balm.
Support.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
It's great.
Love that.
He's selling almost $500,000 of lip balm a month that he makes himself
That's crazy.
in a warehouse in Las Vegas.
Let's go, dude.
Yeah, it's out of this world. But to that point, my big overarching thing is we shift the conversation now from passive income to the active income. The number of people's lives, mine own included, that I've seen change when they started a business and they started working towards their own bottom line instead of thinking just about their company, who they're not excited to get up at 5 a.m. to go work for, but they are excited. It seems that they can position themselves right to get up at 5 and work on their own business, that 5 to 9 before the 9 to 5, and then the 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5. If you're hustling and doing that for you, I think you are going to be motivated at a high level. But I also see that 12 to 24 months of focused effort in that regard, I've just watched lives change completely. And for some people, they become millionaires in 12 to 24 months just because they started that business. Talk to me about your desires and the reasons why you wanted to get involved in more of an active business.
Yeah.
Because I know you bought a brand on Amazon and there was some desire there to get away from what was passive.
Yeah.
Something a little bit
There's
more
some pros and
active.
cons to that as well.
Yeah.
Purchasing the business. But the reason why I wanted to get involved was simply potential. Man, if you just are doing your W-2, what potential is there? It's you know what the next 5 years are going to look like. There is no potential for any windfall. Create that potential of windfall for yourself. That's what we did, me and my wife.
Yeah.
Is create a circumstance where we can put our skill sets in a position to actually have the opportunity to create a windfall. And that's not hyperbole, that is truth. Like that is it. And if you believe it, and there's so many cases for it. More often than not, I think Mark Cuban, speaking of Mark Cuban, I think he's credited for saying the hardest part of business is staying in business. If you can stay in business, continue to grow, continue to innovate, and actually care, you will have, I believe you will have a windfall.
Do you think that he means that in like the capital needed to stay in business, or more so like the actions of putting your head down and not being distracted to stay in business?
I think it's the actions. I think it's like you can invest $50,000 into a really risky stock, Homu or Miro, going to cure cancer.
Homu. Oh man.
But or you can look at yourself as a stock, and say, in a business I'm going to invest in, a small business that can do something cool is my business, and I actually kind of control the outcome a little bit more, and I can control what happens. So simply put, is potential.
Yeah.
Without your own business, there isn't that potential.
Yeah. You went the route of purchasing an existing brand that was sold on Amazon, multiple brands sold on Amazon. Why that over starting from scratch?
Yeah, I think looking back on it now, starting from scratch is actually lower risk for sure.
Why is that?
There's more of a time suck on your time to learn the processes, how to get started. There's more of that upfront, time cost.
Yeah.
But now that I own a business, I can kind of reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
But spending $100,000 on a business, the benefit is there's momentum. So you're getting a business. There's momentum with the business already, and you're coming in, and you're putting in people, and processes in place.
Yeah.
The issue is there's always a story and there's always issues within the business that you have to sort out. So with the momentum comes drama. So you build on that, but you also have to navigate the issues that come with it, which you don't know how big those issues are when you purchase it. So if you're starting the business, you know exactly where the issues lie, and it's like painting your own home. You know exactly, I didn't paint that corner well enough or whatever. Whereas when you're kind of looking around in this business, where are the unpainted corners at?
Mm-hmm.
That is something I learned. We got lucky. The person who sold us the business, really good guy, helped us through any of the question points. We've been able to build on that momentum in large part, but it was a risk.
Yeah. Well, Amazon in particular, and that's, my story, that's where I came up in.
Yeah, you know a little bit about that.
It is risky. And I don't know when that risk changes, when you get to a point that you're not concerned that it can all go to zero. Because for the first couple of years that I was involved in Amazon and selling, I would look at my phone every morning when I woke up. The first thing I would do, no social media, it was like, have I sold anything today? And in the beginning, it's always zero because no one's bought anything yet and it's 5 a.m. Like, it's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But you're still concerned, like, but is my store still live? Because like, I'm so concerned about the store getting shut down for one reason or another. Sometimes it happens randomly. In my case, I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing. So I was a little bit nervous about it, like getting reviews from you and others to try to get this all started. And I was terrified it was all going to get shut down. But you've gone through a shutdown.
Oh my goodness.
Like, talk me through like what that is like. Because that just happened to you.
Yeah. And it's painful, man. It is painful. I went kind of mini viral on Twitter with my whole, I put Amazon seller support. I put everyone on blast. I looked at it as, I'm glad it happened now and not when we're, doing $1 million a month like you guys are.
Yeah.
I'm glad it happened now.
But you just woke up one morning randomly. And
I woke up on one morning and it was deactivated. And
you had an email from them.
Got an email that your account is deactivated. Not like, hey, you need to change these things. So I wake up one morning, to your point, I check my phone. Hey, have we sold anything today?
Yeah.
How's the day going to be on sales? Because you kind of get that as soon as you wake up. You're like, oh, wow, today's starting off good. That day, it was your account's deactivated at the top. I was like, okay, this is probably nothing to get alarmed. So I immediately hop out of bed. And I go and I realize what's going on. I'm starting to hop on phone calls.
What was the reason that they gave you for the deactivation?
Deactivation for the Amazon community. This is what happened. I purchased Couples Coffee. The person I purchased it from had multiple Amazon accounts. It was like deactivation STDs. So it was like his original account got deactivated and that spread to his account, which was associated somehow, IP address, name, anything.
Yeah.
And that passed from his account to my account. So I was third in line, I didn't get a phone call prior to getting this disease, but I should have gotten a warning. Okay. Like, hey, by the way, you got it. Yeah. But and so that's how it happened. So I figured that part on my own. You recommend Riverbend Consulting, which we are in conversations with because they were,
which I want to hear about this more because I don't know where this has gone. But I will say from my experience, anytime anything went wrong for me on Amazon and I had a listing that was completely deactivated, I never had my whole account shut down, but out of hundreds of listings, I've had ones that have gone wrong. Riverbend has always been able to get those back up for me much faster than I could do it for myself.
Right.
So my first advice to you was like, don't do anything. Don't put an appeal in. Just go call Riverbend. They've been through this thousands of times. They can help you out. So what happened?
So they gave me a vote. I called them. To your recommendation, called them. They gave me a vote of confidence. You did nothing wrong. We will fix this. Yeah. I was like, awesome.
You love to hear that.
I love to hear that, man. I'm like, man, this is day one. Weight's been lifted. We pay them. What proceeded was a lot of, and maybe it's because of how large they've gotten, but a lot of cookie cutter template things that I was already doing. After 2 weeks of sending these cookie cutter templates, nothing occurring, I was like, I realized this. No one's going to care about your business as much as you do.
Yeah.
It's just the fact of the matter.
That's true for a lot of things.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, nothing's happening. I told them, I figured out the issue. Take my money, help this guy get his account reinstated because that's what will get my account reinstated. They're like, well, let's try to send a couple more emails. And I was like, I'm going to take this in my own hands. So I'm
surprised they went that route because I feel like everyone knows it's a never ending cycle of seller support. You aren't even getting escalated to the right people yet. and they're like denying
they tried
it,
escalating
saying,
it. But the issue is, man, they wouldn't look at it because I'm associated in Amazon's purview. It is, why is he emailing me about Couples Coffee? I'm not even going to look at it because until he fixes his other account, which they assume is mine.
Yeah.
I'm not even looking at this. Like, it's no big deal. I'm just going to wait till he fixes this account.
Yeah.
And so they don't even.
Just the algorithm.
I would
do you think
exactly right.
A single person?
Exactly right.
Do you think any people were involved in the shutdown of your account?
I don't think any person was involved.
So this is all happening just based off the Amazon bots.
100%.
Where, I mean, think about the size and scale. There's 10 million sellers on Amazon. 10 million.
Gosh, I did not know that.
I don't know if that's worldwide or if that's just America. Either way, that's a huge number.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way they can manage all of that is through having these bots. And while you're going through this, like you weren't alone. Twitter was going crazy with the number of people going through what they call a Section 3. I think you were part of a Section 3, but there's different styles of Section 3 shutdowns. But there were tons and tons and tons of them. A lot of it was people that were selling brands that they were not authorized to sell.
Yeah, I saw
And then they had to try to prove that, like, I'm allowed to sell Nike.
Yeah.
Well, for most
LOAs,
of them, no, you're not.
Like, how am I going to get an LOA from Nike? Like, oh, man, that's a bad spot to be in.
It's a bad spot to be in. You're in a different spot, though, where it's just like, what did I do? And no one can tell you what you did. It's just, oh, he did something, and we're holding you hostage until he gets it fixed.
Right.
So Riverbend's sending these messages. What are you doing on the side that's not associated with what they're doing?
I mean, at first it was nothing. Like the first 2 weeks was like, oh,
they got it.
Riverbend's got it, man. They said I did nothing wrong.
See, I led you wrong in that, right? You assumed that they were taking care of
you.
You know?
I was like, man, okay, it's in the professionals' hands now. You pay good money for them. And they sent me templates and stuff to send, and very, very precise, which I thought was good at first. And for 2 weeks, I would send something, and no shit, like 30 seconds later, I would get a response that it got denied.
From Amazon.
It was
denying you straight up.
They were denying me instantaneously. So I was like, okay. So I was able to find the originator of this account STD, as we're going to call it. And I was able to work with him. Like, hey, what's the issue? Give me your Seller Central. We're going to work through this together, which ended up being, I should have done in the first place. But when your mind's racing, you're like, I need to get this resolved now. I don't know if I want to go through this learning curve of what a deactivation is and what it could potentially be. Learned a lot throughout the process. And for that, it's, like I said, it's a good thing. It's a good thing it happened now. But I worked through him to get his account reinstated, which reinstated his second account, which then
So you did that
mine.
independently on your own.
On my own.
You got his account reinstated.
Yep.
Did he have to go through a bunch of cases with Amazon too to make it happen?
So his was, he had to verify. So his, I think, was Section 3. So he had to verify his product and where he was getting it from. He had to go on camera, show the invoice, show his ID, show his
This is
name.
an active seller account?
Active seller account.
Okay, so he's still selling products, and that issue with the products that he was selling
Correct.
is what caused all of this for you in the first place.
Correct. But there was no issue with the product. He just didn't know what he had to do. So he was
like,
like,
a product that he owned, or was he reselling someone else's product?
It was probably private label, but it was like, manufactured in the US, had all the certifications he needed. I looked at it because I was like, okay, this might screw me big time.
Yeah.
But I looked into his documentation. It was very much, kosher. Everything was good. He had everything. It's just he didn't know the appeal process.
Okay.
I sent him, hey, send this email, ask this. And it was really just then him physically getting on. He had to physically get on a call, which he ended up doing.
Was he as motivated to get this done as you were? Like, how much is he moving in this account?
Not much, man. It was basically a dormant account. That's what was frustrating.
So that's what I felt like was the big lift for you, is that you're held hostage by no fault of your own. And then for you to get released, you have to convince someone who doesn't have the same incentive that you do to go out of their way to fix a problem that is really not a big problem for them.
Right.
So you must be a good sales guy. That's why you make so much money in sales.
Yeah. I had to convince him. for sure.
Here's why this is good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I look at it like like I said, I'm glad to have gone through it now. I'm a firm believer that calm seas don't make great sailors. You need, being a sailor, you got to learn kind of through struggles and through troubled waters. You have to learn how to navigate that. I think if you're the captain of your company and you've never ran into an issue, I don't believe you. First off,
Yeah.
you know, everyone's going to go
I
through
just believe
something.
like the pathway to like success in entrepreneurship is lined. It's like both sides are lined with a graveyard of people who quit when they had the setbacks.
Right. Right.
But if you push through those setbacks,
mm-hmm.
like you do come out the other end more knowledgeable and with a safer business, which I want to talk a little bit more about in a second. But first, let's close the loop on Riverbend Consulting. I in no means am on their side of any of this. Like they have helped me out in the past, and so I threw them out to you. You've paid them up front for this, I imagine.
Yeah.
What does that cost for an account reinstatement?
$2,800, about $3,000.
Okay, so $3,000.
Yeah.
That's more than it was back when I was doing it. It was like $1,500. That's the inflation right there, man.
There we go.
You know, thanks a lot, Joe. But $2,800, they didn't do anything. They didn't fix the problem. You fixed it on your own.
I fixed it
so
on my own.
So what happens now?
Well, I sent them we'll see. I don't want to, you know, I probably reached out in a peak time for them. I think a lot of people were reaching out.
That's true.
You know, so I don't want to criticize them in what probably was an extremely busy time. Everyone was inundated. But yeah, I'm going to try to get my money back because I told them the issue. They said, okay, but let's try sending these emails first. And those were just immediately. And dude, when you spend the time to compose those emails, attach everything, send it, and you're just close the laptop up and you're like, okay, thank God, maybe this will solve it. 30 seconds later, ding, denied. I'm like, gosh, man. So then I'm opening my laptop again. And it's such a defeating process.
Yeah. I can't even imagine
Got through
that's
it.
Like.
Yeah.
But hopefully you get your money back from Riverbend. I wonder, like, legally, if you hire someone to do a job and then they think they're doing the job, but they're not actually doing the activities that would result in the job being done, and then you end up doing it yourself, legally, are they entitled to what you paid them up front for the job that they did not do?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Or are you paying them for the efforts to get a result that is not guaranteed, which is, I imagine, how their agreement is
Terms
set
and
up.
Conditions
like, we're going to do the things that we know we're supposed to, but we can't guarantee our results.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, so you're shut down. I want to move quickly through this, talk about some other things, but you got shut down and you realized all of my eggs are in the Amazon basket.
Exactly right.
So when Amazon shuts me down, revenue goes to zero.
Yes.
When that happens.
That was a big revelation.
You were shut down for how long? How many weeks?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
2 days.
What did you do during those 4 weeks so that when you get to today, you're no longer dependent just on Amazon?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have, and as of now, our website's designed. We're getting a developer to implement the website. But
Your own personal website?
Own personal website.
Built on
Shopify. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it was so clear. Like, if people were reaching out, like, I can't find couples coffee. We were getting dozens of emails and messages of people. I'm almost out of coffee. Yeah. Can you send me some?
Not to be a coffee plug, but I do drink couples coffee.
There we go.
Day.
There we
go. The black label.
Yeah.
So not the powder. I do the Keurig, the K-Cup.
There we go.
I love it. My favorite coffee.
I love it. I love it. Mine too.
That's not a plug, by the way. You didn't pay me to say that. Although if you wanted to pay me to say it, right. I'll say it again. Okay. Time, yeah. So customers are reaching out. They can't find you. You set up a Shopify store just like that. And make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken a while. We wanted to do it the right way, but it reiterated the fact that if I had a Shopify account before we were deactivated, all those people would have switched their business if they had subscribe and saves to Shopify. It could have been a windfall in this segment of the business, which is our profits double on Shopify than Amazon. It reiterated the fact that if you're just on, this is a personal opinion, you might disagree with, if you're just on Amazon, it's a hobby, not a business. That's what I came away with. I think 7 years ago, it could be a real business solely on Amazon. But I think if you're only on Amazon today, it's a hobby, not a business.
Yeah, because it can get turned off anytime.
Yeah. You're not the keeper of your own. Yeah, single point of failure. Exactly right.
It's a really good point. You are exposed to massive amounts of risk. The health score that they give people now certainly is a mitigating factor, where if you're above, I think it's an 800 to 1,000, they guarantee you they won't just shut your account down, but that they'll reach out to you first to work out the issue and keep you going. It's hard to get to 800 account health score. You have to have a certain amount of like sales history to get there. Otherwise, it's impossible to be there. So they're looking at you more as a partner. But the main point is they can still shut you down whenever they feel like it.
Right.
After giving you that phone call to be like, hey, by the way, we're looking into your account shut down.
Yeah.
And that makes it somewhat of a hobby. And the number of people I've seen who have employees in warehouses built on Amazon,
Yes.
and then it just gets shut down, or even worse, they took a loan from Amazon for $1 million, bought a bunch of inventory with it, sent the inventory to Amazon, and then Amazon shuts down the account. You're on the hook for the Amazon loan payments. Even though your account's on hold, they have all your inventory. And if you can't prove what they want you to prove, they'll keep the inventory themselves.
Right.
They'll keep all the funds that are in your seller account themselves. Oh, and you're still on the hook for the loan that you took out from them.
Right.
That's all sitting in their warehouse in the first place. It seems like there'd be more of a due diligence process Amazon would go through with people before giving them money. If the process to shut them down is like this, maybe the process to give them money shouldn't be like this.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be a bit more thought out.
Agreed. What that comes down to is shareholder value.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we have 10 million sellers. Are we going to hire the amount of Seller Central American support people to service the amount of sellers we had 10 years ago?
Yeah.
To make it, maybe it was like 1 per 100 and now it's 1 per 10,000. Are we going to hire those people? No, we can, how much more money we can make if we just outsource this. And
dude, it's crazy how things have changed, because when I started on Amazon in 2017, 2018, you could get onto chat support with someone in America at any time. They were there to help you learn how to sell on the platform.
That's amazing.
Then you had the forums, but you didn't have to use the forums, and we didn't have all the chat GPT and the rest of the stuff you have now. There was very little information available on Google, but you could hop on with someone that worked at Amazon and they would help you set things up. They took away chat support for like 4 years. They just reinstated it. But of course, you're dealing with someone in Malaysia or somewhere else, and that's fine. But you're not getting the same level of support that I was getting when they held my hand to launch my first products, to update those products, to change the brand on a product, which is supposed to be impossible. But they knew how to help me be successful on that, to make variations. Like they walked me through my first bulk upload tool.
Oh, wow.
I still have
That's
the original
amazing.
files of what I did working with them to make it happen. And if it didn't work right the first time when you uploaded it, they'd still be on the chat with you and say, well, show me the file. Oh, you messed up here.
Yeah.
Like let me show you how to see that.
Goodness.
And you go all the way through. The game has changed completely now. I want to shift and talk just more like general business. You've brought up the point a couple times in our conversation that the compound interest, people think about compound interest just like financially, but there's so many other elements of compound interest. And when you are building a business, we talk about your risk tolerance over time and what you have the appetite for. I'd argue that compound interest plays a role there, because it starts with the poker and the investments, buying the first house, leveraging up to buy Airbnbs, and now buying a business on the back end of that. Like you worked your way up to that. But the compound interest that comes from like a knowledge standpoint and a skills standpoint, like talk to me about that, because now you've been in the kitchen cooking for some time, doing a lot of different stuff, and you're getting in the business realm now and trying to build something up. Like how does compound interest from a knowledge and skills standpoint play a role for you and what you're trying to accomplish in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think compound interest, I think we don't associate it with effort, because the only way you can really see it is in financials. And it's still tough because humans, we have such a small, it's so hard to see more than like 6 months in front of you. It's hard to visualize 5 years from now. Think of 5 years ago, of what you knew and the money you're invested, just all of it. And you would never predict where you are. Yeah. I guarantee you didn't think you were going to be a content creator five years ago.
Not a chance. Okay. A year ago, I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
A year ago.
Yeah. And it is something that you have to have. I don't think it's a concept. I think it's a rule, like the law of gravity. I think compound interest in your efforts just builds over time. So it's, to anyone who's looking like, how do I get to this point? It's just like your retirement. Invest that $100, man. Invest $100 every week or every month, and see where you're at in 10 years. Take that small step and take that effort of, how much does it cost? Where do I buy Amazon businesses? How do I start an e-commerce store? They have gamified entrepreneurship as much as they can, as far as like Amazon, Shopify. You literally have a scoreboard on your phone of how well you're doing and how well you're competing. And I think just taking those small steps, downloading the app, going out, talking to someone like yourself, man, and there's so many people who are so generous with their time and their expertise. Just, it's in 5 years from now. I mean, it's crazy where you can be. I mean, we've only been on this journey for, it feels like years.
Yeah.
We purchased this company like 14 months ago.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
It feels
and
like
all
I've
that's
owned it for a
happened.
while.
Like, how much more do you know today?
Oh my goodness.
Versus what you knew 14 months ago.
Oh my goodness. I mean,
Let me ask you that better.
Incredible.
If you could go back 14 months, knowing what you know today, do you buy the store at all? Or do you just start something from scratch?
I think we're fortunate in we bought a really cool brand. I think if it was any other brand, I would say start my own. I think our other brand that we started, Fox and Pharaoh, I think that brand is really special. But Couples Coffee is just, and what we're trying to do with it is really unique. So I'm really glad we bought it. But I will say we didn't have to. In the sense that just starting an e-commerce business, we didn't have to, knowing what I know now.
Yeah. You want to know what I think? I think the reason that you're launching a new brand, Fox and Pharaoh, is because you hopped into the Amazon ditch first. And then you saw efforts put in over here versus what we have to do to grow this, which is basically us starting from scratch with new products. And, well, heck, why don't we do that over here as well and make that happen? Isn't that a little bit because like you hopped into the trench?
Sure. Absolutely.
And you realized this is where the opportunity is at. Like, why do we have to do it just over here?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it felt so daunting to learn, how do you make a brand? How do you get it registered? How do you go through brand registry? How do you develop the trademark? Where do you go? How do you, what do you need for a trademark to submit it? All those different like aspects of just creating an LLC, because hopping in the ditch makes you do that.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of,
it's so funny because like this is why I was on the fence for so long about putting like a course of the knowledge I have on Amazon together. Because on one hand, it's the answer to all the questions that people come and ask me every single day. And it takes my time to answer those questions. And I want to see people be successful. I want to get on the phone and talk to them. I can't do it with everyone. And so I thought, okay, I can put a course together that goes through all these answers. Here's my process. Here's my thought process. Here's what I do. Here's how you do it with the trademarks and the brand registry and building a brand and like putting all that out there.
Man. That is
it's
so
nice,
huge.
but that's just on one side of it, because the other side is the formula for analysis paralysis is having too much information. And the number of entrepreneurs who, if they knew what they were going to go through, would never have started their business in the first place.
That's a good point, yeah.
I almost feel like I'm deterring more people from getting involved with a brand on Amazon by having the course, by giving them too much information and not just forcing them to just hop in the ditch and start figuring it out.
Yeah.
Because then you'll get all this knowledge when it's applicable to you, but not at a time where it's like, oh, if it's going to be all that, geez, I mean, I don't know. Like if Steve's saying I can't be successful unless I have 30K to put in and I have to do all these steps to build a brand, I don't know if it's for me. Like I get stuck on that. Yeah. Because now I have this course, not a plug. It is a plug. Go check it out. Links in my bio. It's free podcast, for everybody. Yeah. There's no upsells at all. It's just information.
I love that.
But the advice that we're giving here is don't take that course. Just hop in. Just start with one product. Buy a store. Get one brand going. Go start to figure these things out on your own. It's far more valuable than taking anyone's course.
Have a bad idea and run with it.
Yeah.
I want to sell water bottles, water containers. I have a name. It's called Path. Start with a bad idea. Launch it. See what happens. And then once you realize like, oh, this ain't that difficult.
Dude, most businesses started with a bad idea. And then they got into the ditch and they started to iterate.
Right.
And they got better because no one liked the idea that they had, or they was informed by customers, or they found a better way to do it, but they wouldn't have found that if they weren't doing the bad idea first.
Right.
And we see the end result of, man, like how did they think about that? Like, that's such a good product. Like, why didn't I think about that?
Right.
Well, it's because they hopped in with the bad idea first. They got started. Quickly, motivation. Where you derive your motivation from, because you're doing so much more than the average person is doing. The average person is working a job, coming home, playing video games, watching the game, doing it all over again, enjoying the weekends, and back to work on Monday, nothing to look forward to. You got the job, you've got side hustles, you have passive income, you're making hundreds of thousands, I'd argue millions of dollars. And like, where does the motivation come for that?
Yeah. I mean, I could ask you the same thing, but for me, motivation is one, I enjoy it, but I want to get to the place where the amount of money I'm making with my W-2, it can be replaced and I can hop out at any moment and make really good money doing what I want to do. And I mean, that's really the end goal is, like I said, I want to be that guy waking up at 5 a.m. to golf, not going to PT and hating life, you know? But, you know, it comes with vision. Like, the vision has changed. The goals have changed. And I'm actually curious on your thoughts about this. Is perspective continually changes. And it's hard to remember. Like, when you're going through the deactivation, you're like, gosh, man, this is miserable. And it's like, actually, I wanted this. I paid $100,000 for this.
Yeah.
You know, if I wasn't going through this, I'd be on the backside of this. Like, man, I want to buy a brand. I would be wanting to get into this and have these miserable experiences. So, you know, it's so tough and I don't know how you do it and how your goalposts change and how you keep perspective, but I'm a firm believer on perspective is a huge motivator for me and not getting demotivated.
Yeah.
It's a huge way to like look back on things and say, you know, this is what I wished for at one point in my life. And here I am. And it's so like, it's like the promotion thing. It's like, oh, you got the promotion, you have all these responsibilities, now you're miserable. Yeah. And I think it's I think I handle stress differently. I think maybe being in the military, like, you know, the stuff we had to do, being deployed, being in the military.
You just had more stress to deal with.
You just had more stress to deal with. So when it's
your
like,
capacity to deal with bullshit now is so much higher.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's like, oh, my order's late. The inventory we might go out of inventory. It's like my like homeostasis level of stress is a bit higher than I think the average person of like, I can handle this and function normally. Yeah. Everything's fine. And I think that's a big contributor why I continue to push through with all these different things. Yeah. Is just how I handle stress, how I stay motivated by constantly keeping perspective, and keeping essentially, you know, a vision on that end state, on that goal.
Yeah. No.
But with you, I'm curious, like, perspective, you know, like, I'm sure you never thought like, you know, DHS would be, you know, proposed for selling for, you know, dozens of millions of dollars, and you have this other venture with a hiring agency that's closed for a couple $1 million. You know, but that's not enough. No, you know, so from
Billy's, Billy's. Okay,
I love it.
I'm not interested in millions. Yeah. My brother used to always say, my twin brother, when we started our first business together back in like 2015. He said, can we stop talking about thousands and get back to we're talking about millions again? Because we'd gone from this big dream to like, okay, we made 20K, we made 30K, we made 50K. Well, it's like we used to talk about millions. Like, that was motivating. Right. These tens of thousands is not going to do it anymore. Yeah. That's where I feel like now, like, talk to me about the plan to get to $1 billion. Right. Don't talk to me about the plan to get to 50 million. But that doesn't motivate me anymore. Yeah. I'm not excited about that anymore. I want to go to $1 billion. Like, now we're putting a plan together that actually gets me. My juices are flowing. My heart beats just saying the word billionaire. Okay. Yeah. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, man. I think you need to talk, you know, not on this one, but like, I think you need to talk more about that. Like, where you came from. I don't know if a lot of people know that story, where you came from, like the simple means of what you've seen. And I don't know where you get your work ethic from. I know your dad was is a really hard worker.
Yeah, always was a hard worker.
Going into DC every morning.
And we were poor, dude. But, I don't talk about this frequently because the perspective of how poor you are. So if you live in a poor community, but you live next to another community, it's like you're adjacent to the ghetto, but you don't live in the ghetto. You're just adjacent to the ghetto. Right. So you see other people that are doing worse than you are.
Yeah.
So for me growing up, my parents were homeowners. I grew up in Maryland, in Southern Maryland, and they owned a home. I think it was an $80,000 home, but they owned it. Mm-hmm. But we were so poor. I mean, we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. Right. And there were times as a kid, I remember my parents had to borrow money from the kids' piggy banks to go and get food, or someone would show up from the church and bring food because we didn't have enough money to buy it. And they were homeowners. But right around the corner from us was an apartment complex that was Section 8 housing, that was government subsidized. And all of them were doing worse. Like, we had some gang activity. We might have a drug bust like once every 6 months in our neighborhood. It was like weekly over there.
Oh my gosh.
We had a drive-by shooting in our neighborhood a couple times when I lived there. It was all the time in the other neighborhoods. So you didn't feel like you were poor because you saw people who were going through so much worse than you were, right? And of course, I'm poor in America, which is a very different thing to being poor anywhere else in the world. I didn't have that perspective back then as a kid. But you think about it now, if I talk about how good life has become, and I say, oh, I as a little kid, I grew up super poor. And then it was kind of, well, there were a lot of people.
Yeah.
And still a lot of people I can think about today who are starting off with worse circumstances than what I had back then. But I should tell that story a little bit more because my oldest brother is about to turn 40. And so he's grappling with...
Dan.
Yeah. He's like, hey, this show's like half over, and he kind of pulled me aside when I was there for my little sister's wedding a couple months ago. And he goes... hey, I'm getting more serious about life because I'm turning 40 and I want to be more fervent about, being a family man and keeping in contact with everyone. He's like, I've done a very poor job of doing that. He's like, I want you to know, what you've made of yourself is a bit of an anomaly from where we grew up. He's like, my goalpost, he said, of what I'm looking for in life now isn't 100 million. Doesn't have to be that. My goalpost is like 5. Mm-hmm. Because that's what would be considered killing it based on where we grew up.
For sure.
For my dad, who grew up in Harlem in the 60s, just getting out of New York without being on drugs, without dying, and without being in prison, wildly successful, just for leaving, then becomes a software tester. And while I may look at that life and be like, I would hate that if that was my life, to go to and from work for 45 years, to retire at 65, to go and make that happen and provide for 7 children. Why would you have 7 children? Like, that seems like a stupid decision to make in the first place. But I would hate that.
Yeah.
But based on the expectancy of what a kid in Harlem in the 60s was supposed to become, the dude is killing it. Absolutely killing it. Absolutely. Now, if you were to ask my dad about being a successful father, guess the things that he would say. Hey, none of my kids are on drugs. None of my kids are dead. None of my kids are in jail. From that perspective, he's killing it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, do I have things I wish you would have done differently or had other goals besides those 3? You kept us alive. Great. Thanks, dude. Yeah. These are human beings we're talking about that are living now, that have sentient thoughts. But that's just the perspective that he has from where he came from. And so I think we have to get to a point where we shift our perspective more outside of just the expectations we have from where we were born and the circumstances that we were in, into what expectations do I have for my life, and expand those goals a little bit further. Because otherwise, if I'm just going off of my brother's dreams or my dad's dreams, hey, I'm there. Yeah, I've done it. I guess I should just retire, kick my feet up, and there's nothing more to it. But that goalpost has to change. This was fun, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.